All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I entertain a motion to approve or amend the meeting agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
Is there any discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Arla?
Aye.
John?
Looks like he stepped away.
Art?
Aye.
And Leanna?
Aye.
And I'll vote aye, and the motion passes. Are there any public comments, Jackie? All right, we're at student board member comments.
Is this our general comment?
Not here.
Okay.
Morgan, do you want to go first, or Audrey?
I go first. So let's see, a lot's happened. We've had homecoming was a great success. We made upwards of almost $5,000 in profit, which was quite a bit, that will go to benefiting various clubs and sports at the school, which will be a much needed boost as of right now. And we are getting ready for next try. We're finishing up, we're starting finals, we're wrapping stuff up in classes, getting registered. Our poor counselors are swamped right now because everyone's trying to get their classes scheduled. What else?
I know currently, so a big issue right now at the high school is vandalism in the bathrooms. I know that, so like the junior class Instagram page that was just recently made, and also I think the senior class Instagram page has been posting, asking people not to vandalize. But so far, I think we've really been working on just like getting the word out to not, like, people don't think it's cool, it's not funny. So we've been saying a lot about that, but that's mostly what we, or at least the school, like the students have done about that.
Yeah, it's been hard because it always seems to happen in the men's restroom. So for a few days, we have 3 men's restrooms in the high school, and 2 of them were shut down for cleaning because the vandalism in there got so bad. And it was very, very stressful. Luckily, our janitors did a great job at cleaning it, and it looks good as new in there.
Oh, good.
I think that's all we have.
Okay, well, thank you. And thank you also for taking the lead in policing the bathrooms with your student body and getting the word out that that's just not funny, like Audrey said. I agree. Okay, we are at the consent agenda, and the consent agenda enables the board to efficiently deal with matters that have been delegated to the superintendent, but by law must be approved by the board. Items on the consent agenda are voted upon as one block and approved with one vote. An item may be removed from the consent agenda only upon approval of a majority of the board. The administration recommends that the board of directors approve the consent agenda as presented or as modified. And I'll accept a motion.
Madam Chairman, I move we accept the consent agenda as given.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
I have 2 questions that are hopefully pretty quick.
Okay, can we do that after we? Oh, no, you're right. Go ahead, Arla, sorry.
Coaching personnel versus volunteer coaching under the personnel report. What is the difference? That was
Well,
my
the
first
coaches are
question.
paid.
Personnel receive a salary, volunteer coaches do not, but they still have requirements. They have to go through background checks and all of those things still. They have to meet all of the requirements for people who work in schools this year. So the difference is they don't get paid.
How do we determine what is a volunteer coach versus who gets paid?
They apply for both kinds of positions, and the athletic department selects the folks that they put in positions.
Okay, thank you. And then how many student publications do we have?
Oh, because you're referring to the new policy?
Yeah.
Yeah, we currently don't have a newspaper or anything, but hopefully that, we'll get some interest and those things will change again. But we did have a need to update the policy because although it addresses publications, it also addresses other kinds of student speech. And so the law required an update.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to ask for the vote. Arla,
Hi.
John, Art,
Aye.
and Leanna,
Aye.
and I vote aye, and the consent agenda is approved. And now we are at board development and linkage, the superintendent update.
And we'll start with our, because we'll start with our budget report this year. This month, it's a little bit longer. We will have the regular monthly reports by Viadon and also an end of the year wrap up for the past fiscal year. Viadon?
Okay, got it. All right, so for our regular monthly report, I'll first report on our other fund balance. So you can see that for October, our capital project, we had a decrease in about $6,000. We had to pay some retainage fee remaining on the stadium, the resurfacing. Okay, so for our debt service fund, you can see that our current fund balance is about 2.6 million. That is, that's about a $970,000 increase from last month. And where you're seeing that revenue come in is for the property tax and some states forest money. For our ASB fund, we have an increase about 13,000. So with the ending fund balance of about 412,000, a lot of that increase is coming from fundraisers, sporting events, gate tickets, and so on and so forth. So that's pretty good. And then for our transportation vehicle, the fund balance is similar to last month, about 339,000. For our enrollment status update, last month we were at about 22,187 student FTE. And for October, we are at 2,262. Just wanted to note that that number includes Running Start, which starts the count in October. So that's about a 75 FTE difference. Okay. So for our monthly update, we'll start with the revenue side. Before I start, I'd like to note that we are about 2 months into the fiscal school year, and this Forecast 5 system takes the trend of the past four years, I want to say. So some of the data might look a little skewed just because we've had such an abnormal year last year. But that being said, I'll just start with the revenue. So this report is on the year-to-date as of October 31st. And so year-to-date, we brought in about 14% of total revenue, and we projected 16%. For our local sources, we brought in 18% and we projected 12%. For our state sources, we projected 16% and we brought in right about 16%. And then for federal sources, we projected 18% and we brought in 6%. Top 10 sources of revenue, with of course our apportionment being our top source, which is $3.4 million year to date. And then for our revenue by sources, purple being current year, red being prior year, you can see that for our local sources, we did not bring in much year to date. That is because we don't have a levy for the most part. And then for our state sources, we're bringing in slightly less than we did last year. And then of course our federal, we are bringing in more than we did last year. So this is just note that is a little funky, but a more appropriate or accurate representation of our federal sources, you can actually see at the green radio button. Okay. And then likewise on the next page, we'll take a look at the expenditure side of this. And so year to date, as of October 31st, we projected year-end balance of about 10% of our budgeted expenditure. For our total expenditure, we have expended 14% and we projected a 17% expenditure. For our salaries and benefits, we projected about 16% and we're right about 15% expenditure year to date. And then for our basic ed, we projected 18% and we're right about 13%. And of course, with our top 10 expenditure, basic ed being our top at 2.4 million. And then if you look at the expenditure by object, purple being current year, red being prior year, for our salaries and benefits, we are expending more than we did last year. And then for our supplies, we've expended less. That actually makes sense. We did a lot of our supply purchases last school year, during the whole COVID pandemic. And then for our purchase services, we are expending more than we did last year. And again, it's because school is open now and we need to contract out for certain personnel or services. All right. So next page, we'll take a look at our month-end balance. Looking at the blue solid line, you can see that as of October 31st, we have an ending fund balance of $4.1 million. And if we are projected at this time, we are projected to have an ending fund balance of $3.7 million at the end of the year. And then for our financial summary, looking at a high-end view, you can see that we brought in about $5.2 million year to date. And our annual budget is $35 million. So we brought in about 14% year to date. And then for our expenditure, we expended $5.5 million. And we're projected to expend $36.7 million. So we've expended about 15% of our annual budget. So that concludes the monthly update for October.
I do have a question. If you could go back, I don't know if that's necessary to see it, but going back to right when you started the whole thing, you mentioned state forest funds. And that's been nagging at me. Are we actually getting state forest funds?
Are you, okay, that one?
Yes. You said it was in a debt service thing.
Yes, yes. So the state forest one, let me see here. So for the month of October, yes, it's in our debt service fund. So we do have a, we have a voted bond that comes out of our debt service fund. So that is, wait a second.
Yeah.
So yes, so in our debt service fund, we have about $113,000 come in for revenue for our debt service fund. And that is because of one of our voted bonds.
Yes, so as you're probably wondering, our collection of forest revenue is dependent on collecting other local dollars. And so we are still collecting a smaller amount of forest revenue because we have a bond that we're collecting on that the voters approved. Unfortunately, this year, if we had an approved levy, we would have collected even more than that this quarter or this last month for to balance the levy, but those are the dollars we're not getting right now.
Okay, I was just still, it just nagged at me. That's all. Thanks.
Sure, no problem. All right. And then Jackie, for the, let's see, the year-end financial report. Perfect. Okay. So this report is, or presentation is I'm going to report on just the overall picture of our 2020-2021 school year, so last school year. And then we can just start, we'll just dig right in and we'll start with our general fund overview. So for our beginning fund balance, we started the year at $3.1 million. And then after our revenue and other financing sources, we brought in about 33.7 million. And then for our expenditures, we've expended about $32 million. And then of course, there was also a transfer out to the debt service fund to pay for our principals and interest for one of our bonds. So that left us an ending fund balance of about $4.4 million. All right. So next slide, we'll take a look at the just comparing the last 2 years, specifically 2020, 2021, and 2019, 2020. So for this overview, our local taxes, you can see that it decreased in revenue about 2.1 million. That is because of the levy. And then for our local non-tax, we also have a decrease of about $500,000. And then our state apportionment, we have a decrease in about 1.2 million. That one makes sense. Our enrollment did go down, so it's connected to that. And then likewise with our special ed, transportation and all that, it also had a decrease of about $880,000. For our federal revenue, we actually had an increase of about $1.8 million. That totally makes sense. That's where you're seeing all of the ESSER money come through. And then our other sources, a decrease of about $60,000. So with a total revenue of 33.7 million last school year. And then for looking at the expenditure by activity, you can see that the first, I'll get my notes here. So our regular instruction, which is basically our basic ed, we expend the most out of there at 47%. And then our second biggest expenditures would be our support services. That's basically anything that has to do with operating a school district. And then our third expenditure would of course be anything out of the special education category. And then anything to do with our comp ed and our voc ed would be the next one. And then finally, our federal, where you're seeing all the federal expenditures, that's about 3%. All right, and then for our expenditure by object, you can see that our salaries take up the biggest part, with our certificated personnel taking up 43%. And then next to that would be employee benefits as well as classified salaries. And then we also have the purchase services. We have expended about 11% of our budget. and then also 7% for supplies and materials last year. Okay. So taking a peek at our capital project fund, we started the year with a beginning fund balance of about 685,000. And after our revenue and expenditure balance of 444,000, you can see that a lot of the revenue will come in at that state and forest money, and probably the most of the expenditures will come out of that. We have a couple of big ones, the stadium and the softball field. Okay. So for our debt service fund, we had a beginning fund balance of 1.2 million. And after our expenditures, it is an ending fund balance of 1.5 billion. I just wanted to note that a big portion of this is that bond refunding that we did not too long ago, earlier this year. So it's reflected in this chart. Okay. For our transportation vehicle fund, beginning fund balance was 180,000, and with the state depreciation money that we got back in August, as well as the sale of equipment a couple months back, we have an ending fund balance of 339,000. So that's great news. And of course, no expenditures for our transportation fund. All right. And then for, lastly, for our ASB fund, we had a beginning fund balance of 393,000, and our ending fund balance is about 383,000. And again, that totally makes sense. You don't really see this in a normal year, but because school was closed for a big portion of the school year, there really wasn't that much revenue coming in, as well as expenditures going out. So that's why you're seeing the ending fund balance to be very close to the beginning fund balance. And that concludes the overall picture of last school year.
Does anybody have any questions for Viet An? Thank you. That was very comprehensive. I do have just one little question. How do you know if we don't really have 75 running start students, do we?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it's great.
That's pretty typical for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
That's
about like
great.
69 or something like that, but yes.
Yeah, I think 69 FTE and 75 because some of them are just part-time.
Right. Right. Okay. Thank you. Teaching and learning.
Yeah, so the bulk of our teaching and learning report tonight was our study session that we had at the prior to this meeting, where we gave the principals a chance to talk to you about their plans for student improvement or teaching and learning improvement and student success for this year. And as you saw, those plans are so deeply embedded in our work to build multi-tiered systems of support so that each child gets exactly what they need to be successful at school. And I'm really proud of the work our building teams have done, even in these very challenging circumstances as we continue to deal with the pandemic and the ensuing crisis. They're working together so well as teams at each building to assess what students need and to adjust their work to meet those needs and to assess their own efforts as well and to make changes when things aren't working the way they anticipated or that they hope for students. So I hope you got to see a little bit of that with the report tonight. And throughout the year, you'll continue to have other reports from our staff on the things they're doing with kids in school. Okay. And then the other thing I did want to bring up, and that is on this agenda, is that in anticipation that we hope to be able to celebrate on the 22nd when the election is certified, we do have to have a special board meeting because we have a new levy. It is not a replacement levy. So if we pass this levy, the board has to take action on a new resolution to collect those funds that you did a previous resolution to ask the community for. That's not something we normally do during a year when it's a replacement levy like it typically has been. But as you know, we didn't have levy collection last year, so this is not a typical year. So we will have to take action. So I spoke with the board president, Bode, and we talked about when is the best time to do that. The calendar at Mason County says that they are going to certify the elections on the 22nd in the afternoon. And so we determined that Mondays aren't a great time to have a meeting, so that we would ask for a special meeting on Tuesday, the 23rd, to just take that action in anticipation of the levy passing. If the levy doesn't pass, we would cancel that special meeting.
Okay. And that would no doubt be a Zoom meeting as well. So is November 23rd a date that would be agreeable to the rest of the board?
What
Sooner the
time?
better, soon as we know.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, well, we'll firm it up as soon as we know what the final count is, and hopefully we'll have that meeting.
Do we know
All
what
right,
time
we
it
are
will be,
now-
Laura?
Pardon, Arlo?
6:30, our
Yeah.
typical time?
6:30. Upcoming board letter columnists, Leanna, you have this month. I have December. Arla, you have January, and Art has February. And now we're at assurance of organizational performance and policy, where we review our policy governance ends and executive requirements, board superintendent relationships and governance process. And last month, we did have a discussion and reviewed ER 13 mandatory policies, but I neglected to ask for a motion. So I'm going to ask for that tonight.
Madam Chairman, I so move.
Okay. It's been moved that we find the superintendent's performance to comply with ER 13. Is there any further discussion? Okay, I'll call for a roll call vote. Arla?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Art?
Aye.
Leanna?
Aye.
And I vote aye. And the motion passes. So now tonight we are reviewing ER 10, academic standards and practices. And before I ask for a motion, I'm going to ask if you've all had an opportunity to review the monitoring report. Okay. Could I have a motion then?
Madam Chairman, I move that we accept the monitoring report as given.
Okay, it's been moved that we accept the monitoring report and find the superintendent's performance to comply with ER 10. Is there any discussion? Any questions?
Just comment. Thank you, Laura, for clarifying the wordage of the motion, assuming John is agreeable to that, because technically he did not say the rest of the part that you did say. He just said accept, which is not really what I'm thinking he wanted to do.
I truly believe with all my heart in the motion.
Thank you both. Now back to the policy, ER 10. Any comments on academic standards and practices? Okay.
Well, I thought it was a pretty clear and thorough description of really heroic movement forward under some very difficult conditions. So I was very pleased with it. I mean, we all hope for, even better results, but I mean, under this time of stress and strain, I thought it was very good and a very informative report assessment.
Thank you, John. Anyone else?
I would agree. With the challenges, especially that we've had to go through, and here I'm saying we, when it really was the staff, the school had to do all that sort of stuff. anyway, I'm just going to agree, right?
Thank you, Art. All right, then I will call for the roll vote. Arla,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Art,
Aye.
and Leanna.
Aye.
Okay, and the motion passes. The performance does comply with ER 10. All right, now
Okay,
we
further
are
comment?
at.
One
we
further
are
comment?
at excuse me?
One further comment. I just want to clarify why I brought up the thing about accept. We have had in the past, when we say accept, that does not necessarily mean approval. And that's why I wanted to point that out. And that's why accept just simply means we accept that we've received it. And it was important to be able to say that, yes, the superintendent complied with, just for clarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Art.
Much appreciated.
Now we're at the good of the order. This is an opportunity for board members, student board members, and the superintendent to make any comments or announcements that they may or may not be related to agenda items or public comments. Is there any?
I have one.
Okay.
My son got to be part of a roundtable discussion this afternoon. And I always knew that they were good and that we got lots of information from them. But the level of confidence that he had after being able to raise his voice put tears in my eyes. He came home like grinning from ear to ear that he got to say something that could possibly make a difference, and I thought that was really special. So being able to see it firsthand of what it looks like on the other side, because I've sat in a round table, but what it looks like when the kid comes home and gets to talk about it. He even thought of something that he wanted to say that he didn't get to say, but I thought it was just really cool. So thought I would bring that up, and that's a really worth it thing.
Okay, thanks, Leanna. Anybody else?
Well, I could, am I on?
You're on.
Okay, well, I wish this was more local, but at least it's educational. I was invited to coach to judge for Bellarmine Academy on the We the People program several weeks ago. And in a kind of offhand way, I was encouraged. There was a couple of teams that were not so great, but there were a couple of teams that were very good. And it always warms my heart to see people studying the Constitution. And I hope I'll be able to report next time. I will be a judge at the state competition in Olympia that they have for December. And all of that is done online via Zoom. And I do have one other little item of personal privilege. I just got an email during our meeting that floated across my screen. You are now talking to an affiliate professor in the Department of Communication at the University of Washington.
Awesome.
Which means I have library privileges. No book in the
Congrats.
world is safe from my prying eyes, except those in languages that I do not read. And I probably have friends that could translate them.
Good for you, John. Does anybody else have anything to add?
I do, but first, congratulations, John, on that award. What I have to bring up is last month when we met, I brought up the thing of the North Mason Scholarship Foundation wanting to collaborate with Kiwanis on career tech education scholarships, which we don't call scholarships, we call awards with Kiwanis for career tech people. The Kiwanis board has met and they have approved a collaboration with the North Mason Scholarship Foundation. The Scholarship Foundation, of course, will not meet until February, I think it is. So they won't know, except that Laura, you now know that. But in any case, just letting the rest of the board know. So there will be a collaboration going on. The details of how it's going to happen are not set yet because that'll Still, that's going to happen, and that's going to be a good news for the career tech ed kids. They will have a larger pool of funds that will be there to support them in their post high school careers. That's it.
Great news.
Morgan and Audrey, do you guys have anything?
I have one thing really quick. This doesn't have much to do with the agenda, but so recently the local EAA chapter, it is the Experimental Aircraft Association out at Bremerton National Airport has started building, well, they will start December 11th, building a electric glider. And they have invited high school students and anyone with any interest in learning about sheet metal or airplane fabrication to come out and help them build this. It'll be an electric glider when it is completed.
Wow.
Yes.
Gee,
That's
when can we
awesome.
see this?
Yes. We'll start building it December 11th. We are going to meet at the airport in the conference room at 12, I believe. And we're going to start practicing and start building the airplane. So they're looking for high school students or just volunteers in general that would be interested in helping and learning.
How big is this thing? Is
Exciting.
it just a model or can people sit in it?
It's a full-sized airplane.
Wow. Jeez. Man. Who gets to go in it?
We'll contact you, John. As soon as
Okay.
it's done. Audrey, do you have anything to add?
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything.
Okay. Okay, well, Morgan, keep us informed on the progress of that electric glider.
Thank you. I will.
Okay. All right, if there isn't anything else, I will adjourn the meeting. The next board meeting will be held December 16th at 6, actually, it's going to be December 14th at 6:30 p.m. in the administration office boardroom, and it will be Zoom. This is a Tuesday night so that all 5 board members can be present since we will be electing a new president and vice.
I have one question.
Laura, we missed self-assessment.
Oh, yeah.
I'll go back. Go ahead, John.
I invited some folks to for some reason they had trouble with the Zoom address. Is this going to be on, is there some way that this is on tape? Will
Yes,
they be
they
able?
can watch it on Mason. Jackie, jump in here.
TV.
Mason Web TV,
Yeah.
you get on, and then the YouTube link.
Okay, but if she goes to Mason Web TV, will they be able to get all the rest from there?
Yes.
Okay.
Good. Sorry, Arla, you have the board self-assessment tonight.
I do. So the board will use the following instrument to evaluate its performance during meetings. All 5 board members were on November 16th. General meeting behavior. The agenda was well planned to focus on the real work of the board. I will rate as satisfactory. The board followed its agenda and did not allow itself to get sidetracked. Satisfactory. Board members prepared for and contributed to the meeting. Satisfactory. The meeting distractions, the board's deliberations and decision-making processes were public. Participation was balanced. All participated, no one dominated. Avoiding side conversations. Work was conducted in an atmosphere of trust and openness, and meeting participants treated each other with respect and courtesy. I would rate that all satisfactory. Under governance principles review, Were these principles followed? Yes. So board actions occurred at the policy level rather than operational level. The board reviews policy about each topic before discussing that issue. In writing additional policies, the board starts with a broad statement and becomes more detailed in a logical and disciplined sequence. The board minimizes time spent monitoring past performance. The board routinely dedicates time to reviewing and improving its own process. The board clarifies priorities and values when considering potential outcomes, beneficiaries, and costs of outcomes. The board follows an annual calendar based on a plan for doing its work. The board chair helps the board efficiently conduct its meeting. The board spends most of its time deliberating issues, defining and clarifying its vision, and linking with its community, as opposed to fixing things. And the board supports the superintendent in any reasonable interpretation of its policies. I would say, yes, we followed all of those principles, and I would rate us overall as satisfactory.
Thank you, Arla. All right, and again, the next meeting is December 14th at 6:30, and we will be Zooming that meeting also. So I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody, for all of your time and your efforts. And I'll see you next month.